the spell card Pot of Greed!
I'm throwing down the spell card, Pot of Greed! And now I'll use its magical charm, and then draw 2 additional cards from my deck!
And I activate the spell card Pot of Greed! This lets me draw 2 cards. I'm playing the magic of Pot of Greed! This lets me draw 2 more cards. This should do nicely. I play the spell Pot of Greed! It lets me draw 2 more cards. My go! And I play Pot of Greed! It lets me draw 2 cards. And they're 2 sweet ones.
I activate the spell card Pot of Greed from my hand. Due to its effect, I draw 2 cards.
I'm gonna use my Pot of Greed. It lets me draw 2 more cards.
And I activate the spell card Pot of Greed! Now I'm allowed to draw 2 additional cards from my deck to my hand. Here's 1, and now, here's number 2.
I activate Pot of Greed. Now I can draw 2 cards from my deck.
First, I'm activating Pot of Greed. And with this spell, I can draw 2 more cards. I play the spell card Pot of Greed. It lets me draw 2 cards.
And I play Pot of Greed. This lets me draw 2 cards from my deck.
I play the spell Pot of Greed. Now I may draw 2 more cards.
The spell card Pot of Greed. It lets me draw 2 cards from my deck.
I now activate Pot of Greed. That gives me 2 more cards.
First, I play Pot of Greed. It lets me draw 2 more cards from my deck.
Go, Pot of Greed!
My Pot of Greed! This lets me draw 2 more cards from my deck.
And we'll follow up that act with our next performer. Ha! One of my faves, Pot of Greed! That's 2 cards for me and
now, I'll use my Pot of Greed.
here goes. I play Pot of Greed, which means I get to draw 2 more cards.
I activate a personal favorite of mine called Pot of Greed. Sorry, now I pick up 2 more cards. Anything look familiar? I have a Pot of Greed also, and it lets me draw 2 cards.
I play Pot of Greed, so I can draw 2 cards.
I play Pot of Greed, which I'm sure you know lets me add a couple more cards to my hand.
Well, what do you know, Aster? Pot of Greed. I'll draw 2.
I activate Pot of Greed, so now I can draw 2 cards.
I play Pot of Greed. This spell card allows me to draw 2 new cards from my deck.
First, I activate Pot of Greed, so I'll be drawing 2 more cards.
Now I activate my Pot of Greed, so I'll be drawing 2 more cards.
We're not done yet! I play Pot of Greed, which lets me draw 2 cards!
I just drew Pot of Greed, so I pick up 2 more cards.
Watch the pro, Pot of Greed. I pick up 2 cards.
Fine. I activate my Pot of Greed, so I'll draw 2 cards. Then,
But enough talk. I activate the spell card Pot of Greed. This lets me draw 2 cards.
My favorite. It's my Pot of Greed. 2 more for me.
I play Pot of Greed, so I'll draw 2 cards and
So, I activate Pot of Greed. This lets me draw twice. I'll be playing Pot of Greed. Check it out. I get 2 cards.
it's payback time. I'll start by playing Pot of Greed. So now I get to draw 2 more cards.
I think I'll be taking 2 more cards, courtesy of my Pot of Greed spell.
Next I play Pot of Greed, which lets me draw 2 more cards.
I play my Pot of Greed. And with 2 more cards to choose from.
Then I play Pot of Greed, so I can draw twice more.
I activate Pot of Greed, so I can draw 2 cards.
I play the spell Pot of Greed. It me something.
I'll start by activating this, my Pot of Greed spell card. So 2 more cards for me.
Nicely done.
Then I activate Pot of Greed. This lets me draw 2 cards from my deck.
I activate Pot of Greed, so I draw 2 cards.
I play Pot of Greed, so I draw 2 cards.
Now me play Pot of Greed. Now me draw 2.
Cause I play Pot of Greed, so I get 2 more cards. And what do you know, it's my Pot of Greed spell card.
I activate Pot of Greed. It looks like it's 2 cards for me. So next, I play this, my over...
I play Pot of Greed, so I draw 2 cards.
I activate Pot of Greed, so I pick up 2 more cards.
Pot of Greed, I pick up 2 more cards.
I play Pot of Greed.
Pot of Greed, and you know what that means. I get 2 more cards.
And I'll start with Pot of Greed, so I draw 2 cards.